Piers docking compartment, flight engineers Yurichikin and Mazurkin had reviewed their timeline with specialists on the ground this morning for their planned excursion. Again, that is planned for tomorrow morning. That spacewalk is to begin at 6:40 a.m. Central Time, 7:40 a.m. Eastern Time. The two cosmonauts will venture outside the orbiting complex to replace a laser communications experiment with a platform for the installation of a small optical telescope, and also to remove a docking target from the Piers docking assembly. The pair also will be inspecting the best surface module antenna covers to ensure they are securely fastened. This additional task coming after the crew discovered on Monday one of these antenna covers had come loose and floated away, as you can see here in this video that was taken from the crew. The spacewalk is scheduled to begin tomorrow again at 6:40 a.m. Central Time with the opening of the hatch to the Piers docking compartment. We'll bring you live coverage here on NASA television beginning at 6 a.m. Central Time. Mazurkin also will have some time along with Space Station Commander Vinogradov and Flight Engineer Chris Cassidy for a suited fit check of their customized body contoured seats inside their Soyuz spacecraft that brought them to the space station and is docked to the hoist module. That vehicle is in that diagram was TMA-08M. The trio who arrived at the space station together back in March earlier this year will don their Sobol suits and get into their tailor-made shock-absorbing seats to ensure a safe and proper fit before their scheduled return to Earth next month in Kazakhstan. In addition to preparing for his departure in a few weeks, Cassidy, shown here in this video, has worked to replace a filter component for the water recovery system. The water recovery system converts urine, sweat, and condensation into drinkable water for the crew. And Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano will perform regularly scheduled maintenance of the compound-specific analyzer combustion product that is used on the International Space Station as a warning monitor of smoldering or combustion events, and after any fire event to indicate toxic gas levels. Parmitano and Flight Engineer Nyberg also will work together to replace rope hardware within the onboard gym equipment known as the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device that simulates weightlifting here on Earth. Each of the crew members will then put in their daily 2 hours of exercise using onboard equipment that includes the station bicycle, a treadmill, and also an advanced resistive exercise device. The crew will then wrap up the day with a final daily plan conference with the ground, and will then have time for dinner and personal wind-down time before entering their sleep period. The crew will begin their sleep period early today at 1 p.m. Central Time in advance of tomorrow's spacewalk. This is Mission Control Houston. This is Mission Control Houston. You're getting a live view inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. We're looking at the Orbit 2 team here being led by Flight Director Holly Ridings. Orbit 2 team is monitoring the systems and the crew's activities aboard the space station. Next to her was Capcom Anna Fisher, who's been relaying all ground messages up to the crew. Today's a busy day aboard the International Space Station as the crew prepares for another spacewalk outside the orbiting complex. The two spacewalkers shown here for the Russian spacewalk It's Flight Engineer Fyodor Yurachkin and Alexander Vazirkin. Both of these crew members will be wearing helmet cams, and both will be wearing suits that have the blue stripes. That spacewalk is scheduled to begin at 6:40 a.m. Central Time as they exit the complex. We'll be bringing you live coverage here on NASA television beginning at 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time.
First of all, the weight, and we'd like to double check and you confirm that you can see the red light, and we'd like to double check if it is flashing or solid.
Red light is definitely there. It's kind of a flicker. It's a small LED.
Yep, we caught that. And thank you very much for the status, and we will check that.
That there we just heard was an exchange between Karen Nyberg and the ground. She is currently.
Just we'd like you to shoot with a G1 camera to adjust the payload, and we'd like to confirm what is going on there.
She's currently in the Japanese module working on a checkout of the Kibo robot, a Japanese payload, while the 6 crew members aboard the International Space Station continue with their busy work days today. Let's head out to the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, where Lori Banks is standing by live. Lori, we are learning about oceans from space. What can you tell us about this?
That's right, Amico. It's called HIPO, or Hyperspectral Imager, for the coastal oceans. And this is a special camera that allows scientists to study the coastal regions and environmentally characterize those coastal regions, land and the water. This camera separates light into hundreds of wavelength channels that provide information on the composition of the land and water along the coast. I recently spoke with one of the investigators from the Naval Research Laboratory at Stennis Space Center to find out more.
It's a hyperspectral high-resolution sensor that measures the reflectance of light out of the water. So it extends a long-time series of measurements that NASA and the European countries have made for several decades. But it has also several unique capabilities and applications specific for the scientific and naval communities.
What are some of those unique capabilities?
Well, it's the only sensor in space that measures the light spectrum hyperspectrally. So as opposed to some of the standard ocean color sensors that have maybe 8 bands, HIPO has 128 very narrow resolution bands that help us distinguish and unravel the optical components in the water column. And those optical properties influence light penetration, so they're important for primary production measurements, phytoplankton distributions, as well as topics of interest to the Navy, anything that's impacted by the penetration of the light.
So what they don't know, what does hyperspectral mean?
Okay, we're looking at visible wavelengths from about 400 to 900 nanometers at discrete channels of about 5.7 nanometers. So every 5.7 nanometers over that spectral range, we've got a separate signal. And different phytoplankton pigments and properties in the water absorb light differently. So if the light's transmitted from the sun, some of it reflects off the surface of the water, some of it penetrates. And when it's in the water, dissolved in particular material alters that spectral composition. And when it's reflected back to the sensor, we can look at that difference and try and understand what was in the water that caused that.
So why is this data important to have?
Well, the phytoplankton are the base of the food chain. They're the main source of primary production in the ocean, so it's important to map their distributions and understand what controls their biomass and growth. And by measuring the light coming out of the water, we can map these distributions on synoptic scales at really high temporal and spatial resolutions globally.
How does it all work?
Well, HIPO measures the radiance at the top of the atmosphere from the International Space Station. So in that signal is the water-leaving radiance, which is what we're interested in, as well as the atmospheric radiance, which is our noise. So after we perform an atmospheric correction, we're left with the water-leaving radiance. And from that spectral signature, we can try and unravel the dissolved and particulate material in the water column.
So when did you launch? How long have you been there?
It was launched and installed on the space station on the 24th of September in 2009. So it's been up there almost 4 years. We've collected over 8,100 scenes to date, and it's been a great demonstration of the potential for hyperspectral imagery, the optical properties and environmental properties of interest to the Navy as well as the scientific community.
Any results so far that you've shared and maybe some spin-offs?
Sure, yeah. We've, as I said, we've collected a lot of imagery globally, so we can look at the high resolution coastal processes anywhere in the globe. We can select our own targets. We've applied some new optimization algorithms where we can estimate water depth, water optical properties, and bottom reflectance simultaneously. And we've partnered with the EPA to monitor coastal areas of the United States, and we're trying to bring that to a broader audience so that we can present it like we do weather, where we have an application where we can look at ocean conditions easily for the general public.
What's next for Hydro?
Well, I think we have at least another year of operations on the space station. We're hoping to be right next to a LiDAR sensor that's going to go up next year, so by combining the active and the passive signals, we'll get even more information from the ocean.
And for more information on this and other investigations, go to nasa.gov/station. And Mark Faust is the Payload Operations Director today, leading the team here in the flight control room. And that will do it for us from here. Now back to you at Mission Control in Houston.
Thank you, Lori. Now we are back inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston, Texas. Again, that was just one of the ways that we are collecting and learning about our planet through Earth observations. The space station's current altitude of a little more than 260 statute miles overlooking the Earth provides a unique vantage point from which astronauts have numerous opportunities to photograph various locations on Earth. Capturing an array of pre-identified geographical spots for Earth scientific observations is often also part of the crew's daily task. Today we have a few targets that were identified. One of these locations is looking at the floods in northeast China. Another site location is the BP impact in Libya. And part of the capital city's collection site in Bern, Switzerland, as well as Vienna in Austria. And last but not least, also the Harvard Forest, looking at long-term ecological research sites. You can search through these images here on online at http://eol.jnc.nasa.gov. Photographs taken from the International Space Station account for almost half of all Earth photographs from human spaceflight. Again, you can search through that collection there online at that website. And now we're getting a live view aboard the International Space Station. Here in this view is Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano. Parmitano, who arrived about 3 months ago there aboard the International Space Station, is on his first flight here. In this view, he's been busy working to replace a sample cartridge exchange at the Material Science Laboratory. do you mind taking a couple pictures for us?
I don't know, like, can I do this at the end, or, because right now I'm at step 1, decimal 7, it says step 3, so, it doesn't give me any instruction on how to store it, and so I can do it at the end.
And Luca, right now would be perfect if you'll just take the old one out and take some pictures and then put the new one in.
Okay, and what kind of, where would you like the pictures to be taken of?
And Luca, I'm checking the video is good enough. And Luca, we need a high-resolution picture of what you believe got scratched. This is Mission Control Utah. For those of you joining us now, we're getting a live view aboard the International Space Station. Just have come out of view with flight engineer Luca Parmitano, who has been working to replace a used sample cartridge of the Material Science Laboratory aboard the International Space Station, and also replace it with the next test sample. The Material Science Research Rack aboard the International Space Station is being used by scientists and researchers here at NASA to develop new materials and find out what properties we can change in existing materials to improve them. And now we're back inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. This is the Orbit 2 team who continues to monitor the systems and oversee the crew's activities aboard the space station. Today leading the Orbit 2 team is Flight Director Holly Ridings, shown here on the right-hand side, and next to her, serving as CAMCOM, is NASA astronaut Anna Fisher. She's been relaying ground messages out to the crew. Meanwhile, aboard the International Space Station, all is set for a spacewalk that is to occur beginning tomorrow morning. It'll be the 173rd spacewalk in support of space station assembly and maintenance. The two spacewalkers will be flight engineer Fyodor Yurchikhin and flight engineer Alexander Serkin. This will be Yurchikhin's 8th spacewalk and the third from Serkin. Both spacewalkers will be wearing suits bearing the blue stripes, and both will be wearing helmet cameras. That spacewalk is scheduled to begin tomorrow again at 6:40 a.m. Central Time, 7:40 a.m. Eastern Time, with the opening of the hatch to the Piers docking compartment. The two cosmonauts will be venturing outside the orbiting complex to replace a laser communications experiment with a platform for the installation of a small optical telescope, and also to remove a docking target from the Piers docking assembly. The pair also will be inspecting the service module antenna covers to ensure they are securely fastened. This is an additional task coming after the crew had discovered on Monday that one of these antenna covers had come loose and floated away, as you can see here in this video the crew had taken from aboard the International Space Station. Again, this was on Monday.
Do you want me to walk you there, or any specific point?
And Luca, if you don't mind just writing on the container, not on the actual sample.
I did it all. I think it makes total sense.
And this container will be marked like you're doing right now as processed. It will move with 3-2 into the processed U.S. sample cartridge MPC into lab 173.
Okay, NTP serial number 115662.
Copy that. That is what we were expecting. Thank you. This is Mission Control Houston. We're getting a live view aboard the International Space Station. We're listening to an exchange between Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano and the Payload Operations Integration Center there in Huntsville, Alabama, shown here in this view. Parmitano has been working to replace a sample cartridge exchange of the Material Science Laboratory. And this Materials Science Research Rack is being used to help develop new materials and find out what the properties are that we can change in existing materials to improve those materials here on Earth. The space station, with its 6 crew members in the middle of their busy work days, are now flying at an altitude of a little more than 260 statute miles. We can see it is on a nighttime path, taking a southeast track, having just come across Australia, and will soon pass over New Zealand and the Southern Ocean. Yeah, we were trying to reach you on 3 while Karen was hopping on 2, so probably just got missed. Thank you for the report.
Sorry about that. We're not blocking, it's just, I guess we're busy and we missed that call.
No problem. We'll get the next one. This is Mission Control Houston. We're just listening again to an exchange between Luca Parmitano. They're aboard the International Space Station. Luca has been working to remove an old sample cartridge exchange and replace it with a new one of the Material Science Laboratory. He was just speaking with the ground specialist at the Payload Operations Integration Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Shown here in this view. Meanwhile, aboard the International Space Station, the crew continues throughout its busy work day. 2 crew members are preparing, or are prepared, and ready for a spacewalk that will kick off tomorrow morning, beginning at 6:40 a.m. Central Time, 7:40 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be bringing you live coverage of that event beginning here on NASA television at 6 a.m. Central Time. Meanwhile, as mentioned, Parmitano continues to work to remove and replace that sample cartridge exchange shown here at the Material Science Laboratory. One of his crewmates, Karen Lockberg, is currently working inside the Japanese module for a Kibo robot checkout. That is a Japanese payload aboard the International Space Station. And also today, 3 crew members are preparing for their departure in a few weeks from the International Space Station. In preparation of their departure, the crew members Masurkin.
Go too far, Mr.
Go ahead, Luca.
I'm keeping you busy today. So on the step 5.15, it asks me to verify that there is a message drive. So until now I haven't got any message on the status bar. However, on the sample side of the software, I have installation position 21.000, which is what I wrote as an input, and then I have furnace position 21.050, and it's stable. So my assumption is that the furnace position is already reached its final position, but I'm not getting the message.
We're checking with this. And Luca, that message might have just popped up so fast you might have missed it, but you are good to go and continue on.
Okay, and the same for the MSN professional waiting for the new. That's 5.17.
Checking. This is Mission Control Houston. For those of you joining us now, we are inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. We have been listening to an exchange between Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano. They're aboard the International Space Station, and the Payload Operations Integration Center there in Huntsville, Alabama. Parmitano has been working to replace a sample cartridge exchange of the Material Science Laboratory there aboard the International Space Station. Meanwhile, 3 of his crew members are preparing for their departure. And in a few weeks, that'll be Flight Engineers Chris Cassidy, Commander of the Complex Vinogradov, and Flight Engineer Mazurkin. The 3 today took some time for a suited fit check of their customized body contoured seats inside their TMA-08M Soyuz. That is shown here docked to the hoist module. The 3 had dressed in their Sokol suits, sat in their tailor-made shock-absorbing seats, and used a ruler to measure the gap between the top of the head and the top edge of the seat. These seats are designed to withstand G-loads during launch and orbital insertion, as well as during re-entry and the parachute assisted landing. Each of these seats have 2 positions. One of these positions are in a raised to allow the shock absorbers to function during touchdown. That fit check is needed because their bodies will have gained some in height during their long stay in microgravity, and they need to check that they will still be adequately protected by the seat liners for their touchdown in Kazakhstan. And their return to Earth is scheduled for September. This is Mission Control Houston. We're getting a live view now aboard the International Space Station. In this view is Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano, who continues his work to replace a sample cartridge exchange of the Material Science Laboratory. You can see that sample exchange there in his hand as he continues his work there aboard the International Space Station. Meanwhile, in another area of the space station, one of his crewmates, Karen Nyberg, is in the Japanese module, experiment module. She's been working to conduct a checkout of one of the Japanese payloads, the Kibo robot. While 2 other of the crewmates, Flight Engineer Alexander Mazurkin and Yuri Chikin, are fully prepared and ready for tomorrow's spacewalk. Shown here on the left-hand side, Fyodor Yuri Chikin, and on the right-hand side, Alexander Mazurkin will begin the spacewalk tomorrow outside the Piers docking compartment as they exit at about 6:40 a.m. Central Time. The 2 cosmonauts will be venturing outside the orbit complex to replace a laser communications experiment with a platform for the installation of a small optical telescope, and also to remove a docking target from the Piers docking assembly. The pair also will inspect the Zvezda service module antenna covers to ensure they are securely fastened. This is an additional task coming after the crew discovered on Monday one of these antenna covers had come loose and floated away. Looking at you, Luca, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to step limit 7.5, and it says verify serial number 1156,494, but there's
Mission Control Houston, we're looking at a live view inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. We're now here with the Orbit 2 team, who continues to monitor the systems and the crew's activities aboard the International Space Station. That crew of Expedition 36 currently is Commander Pavel Vinogradov, Flight Engineer Alexander Mazurkin, Flight Engineer Chris Cassidy, shown here on the left-hand side, and then joining them 3 months ago on the right-hand side, Fyodor Yurichikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg. All 6 crew members are continue to perform their activities aboard the International Space Station and are preparing for a spacewalk that is to occur tomorrow early morning. The crew members will be entering their sleep period early today, beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time. Those spacewalkers again here are Flight Engineer Fyodor Yurichikin and Alexander Mazurkin. This will be the 8th spacewalk for Yurichikin and the 3rd for Mazurkin. And we're now looking at animation of that spacewalk. You can see there in this view that this is the Piers docking compartment, and where the spacewalkers will be exiting and beginning their spacewalk. Again, that spacewalk is scheduled to begin at 6:40 a.m. Central Time. The 2 cosmonauts will be working to replace a laser communications experiment with a platform for the installation of a small optical telescope. They will also be removing a docking target from the Piers docking assembly. And also an additional task coming after the on Monday earlier this week, that one of the antenna covers had come loose and floated away. The antenna covers of the Zvezda service modules. The pair also will be inspecting the Zvezda service module antenna covers to ensure that all are securely fastened. Again, we are looking at an animation of the planned timeline of the spacewalk that is scheduled tomorrow. Again, that kickoff time just outside of Piers docking compartment. You can see in this view. It's scheduled to take place beginning at 6:40 a.m. You can see here in this animation both of the spacewalkers, one in blue stripes and one in red stripes. Tomorrow, both will be donning the suit with the blue stripes, and both will have helmet cameras. This is Mission Control Houston. We are looking again at video animation of the planned spacewalk for tomorrow. Flight engineers Yurichikin and Mazurkin will be venturing outside the orbiting complex. Kicking off the spacewalk just outside the Piers docking compartment, getting at 6:40 a.m. Central Time. We will be bringing you live coverage here on NASA beginning at 6 a.m. The key events for tomorrow's spacewalk include replacing a laser communications experiment with a platform for the installation of a small optical telescope. The pair also will remove a docking target from the pier's docking assembly. And also scheduled on their timeline, your Chicken and Mazurkan will be inspecting all of the antenna covers of the asbestos service module. This is an additional task that came after the crew had discovered earlier this week on Monday that one of these antenna covers had come loose and floated away. Your Chicken and Mazurkan had both conducted their final timeline review this morning. Pair and all 6 crew members will begin their sleep period earlier today at 1 p.m. Central Time in advance of that spacewalk. Again, we'll be bringing you live coverage here on NASA television at 6 a.m. Spacewalk is scheduled to kick off at 6:40 a.m. Central Time as the 2 spacewalkers exit the orbiting complex from the Pier's docking compartment. You're now getting a view inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. This is the Orbit 2 team being led today by Flight Director Holly Ridings. Shown here in the right-hand side, and then next to her on the left-hand side is NASA astronaut Anna Fisher, who's been serving as CAPCOM, the capsule communicator for the space station crew members. All 6 crew members aboard the International Space Station continue throughout their busy work days. That will be wrapping up again at 1 p.m. Central Time, an earlier time than normal to accommodate and support for tomorrow's spacewalk. We're getting a live view aboard the International Space Station now of Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano, who has been working within this hour to replace a sample cartridge exchange of the Material Science Laboratory there aboard the International Space Station. He is now installing the next test sample of that research rack. Again, scientists and researchers here at NASA are using that material science research rack to learn how we can develop new materials or find out what properties we can change in existing materials to help improve those materials here on Earth. This is Mission Control Houston. We're now back inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. We have been watching Flight Engineer Luca Parmitano continue his work with the Material Science Laboratory to remove and replace a sample cartridge. Meanwhile, earlier today, we have some downlink video here of Flight Engineer Chris Cassidy. Here he is working to perform some maintenance to the water recovery system. We will replace a filter of that system. The water recovery system converts urine, sweat, and condensation into drinkable water for the crew aboard the International Space Station. We're now back inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. Again, we were watching a video that was downlinked from earlier work aboard the International Space Station. It was Flight Engineer Chris Cassidy, who has been living and working aboard the International Space Station since March of earlier this year. He is scheduled to return back to Earth in the next month, along with his crewmates, Alexander Mazurkin, and Commander Vinogradov. Again, that video that we were watching was an activity Cassidy was performing earlier this morning to remove and replace the filter system from the water processor assembly that is a part of the water recovery system. Again, this system is a unique system that converts sweat and condensation as well as urine into drinkable water for the crew aboard the space station. This is Mission Control Houston. Again, we are inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. This Orbit 2 team continues to monitor the systems and support the crew's activities aboard the space station. The crew of Expedition 36 is finalizing some of their work tasks of today. That crew again here, shown here, is Commander Papa Vinogradov, along with Flight Engineer Alexander Mazurkin and Chris Cassidy there on the left, and then on the right we have Flight Engineer Yurichikin, Luca Parmitano, and Karen Nyberg. The crew will be wrapping up their day here in just a couple of hours, and they will be entering an earlier than normal sleep period in advance of tomorrow's spacewalk. Again, that spacewalk will be conducted by Flight Engineer Yurichikin and Mazurkin, who will both be wearing suits with the blue stripes and a helmet cam. Primary task of tomorrow's spacewalk are to replace a laser communications experiment with a platform the Pures docking assembly, as well as an additional task to inspect all of the antenna covers of this VESDA service module. And that spacewalk is scheduled to take place at 6:40 a.m. Central Time, 7:40 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be bringing you coverage of the spacewalk beginning at 6 a.m. here on NASA Television. For continuous updates about the space station and Expedition 36 crew, be sure to visit www.nasa.gov/station. You can also connect to the Expedition 36 mission on Facebook at www.facebook.com/ISS and follow along the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag ISS. Up next on